So, welcome back to a wonderful, eventful evening of us getting into what Jesus meant when he said, this generation, that all these events that he was talking about um, in Matthew 23 and 24, what did he mean? Was he talking to us here in 2025? No, he wasn't. I maintain he was talking to the generation in whom he was talking to. Going back, if you look at Matthew 23, he was talking to the scribes and the Pharisees, and he was reaming them out. He was that doesn't even do justice, really. He was really getting into what they were like, their hypocrisy, okay, and how they were going to be judged and judged very badly. And so let's get into that because I think that is very interesting for us to talk about. So let's get into it. Matthew 23, verse 29, I believe, right? And so, Jesus says himself, he says, "Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because ye build the tombs of the prophets and garnish the sepulchres of the righteous." In verse 30, and say, "If we had been in the days of our fathers, we would not have been partakers with them in the blood of the prophets," which is completely hypocritical. Because when you get into verse 35, they had slain a righteous man named Zacharias, son of Barachias, between the temple and the altar. And even if we were to continue Matthew, and if we were to continue in verse 31, "Wherefore ye be witnesses unto yourselves, that ye are the children of them which killed the prophets, and they are. Fill ye up then the measure of your fathers." So, you guys are witnesses yourselves to the fact that you are the children of them which killed the prophets. So fill ye up then the measure of your fathers. "Ye serpents, ye generation of vipers, how can ye escape the damnation of hell? Wherefore, behold, I send unto you prophets and wise men and scribes, and some of them ye shall kill and crucify, and some of them shall ye scourge in your synagogues, and persecute them from city to city, that upon you may all the righteous blood shed upon the earth, from the blood of righteous Abel unto the blood of Zacharias, son of Barachias, whom ye slew between the temple and the altar. Verily I say unto you, all these things shall come upon this generation." And then he's lamenting over Jerusalem from verses 37 to 39. You can read that yourself. Okay? So he's talking to that generation, and some crazy things are going to happen to Jerusalem, the likes of which I don't think history has ever seen anything quite so horrific. It was very bad what happened. Okay? And then we get into Matthew 24. Okay? And then Jesus went out and he departed from the temple. So he was in the temple, I assume, okay, judging, right, the Pharisees and the scribes. And now he is leaving the temple. And verse 1 says, "And his disciples came to him for to shew him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down." And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, "Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world?" And Jesus answered and said unto them, "Take heed that no man deceive you." Okay? And then he goes into all of what basically went down, right? Leading up to, I would say probably from about 66 AD up to 70 AD. I'm saying, because of a few things that happened at that time. Now, before I get into even all of that, when you read the chapter yourself, and I'm going to encourage you to read all of Matthew 24 yourself, you get an idea as to the coming judgment, all of the various signs, all the various things that would have been happening in that region, and arguably within the Roman Empire, but definitely what was happening what would be happening to the Jews, what the Jews of that time would see, and the Gentile believers, Jewish Christians and Gentile Christians, by the way. So now we get into the very famous verse where Jesus says in the very same Matthew 24, "Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled." Right? So Jesus is saying all of that. And even prior to getting into verse 34, prior to that, he says the famous two verses in Matthew 24, verses 30 and 31, and then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And there were signs at that time leading up to the destruction of the temple and the city of Jerusalem. And verse 31, and he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. All right, so we get that in verse 30 and 31, and Jesus reiterates again, verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all of these things be fulfilled. Bearing in mind that in Matthew 23, he is using the word generation as well. He's using that word as well, right? And for the generation that he's talking to that generation, including the scribes and the Pharisees, that generation including the disciples.